Wrong page. So for tonight's meeting, we're going to begin with the organization Pledge of Allegiance, which we just did in a reading of the mail. That will be followed by department board updates and requests. We have an appointment of Ms. Bridget Bell as our new Human Resources Manager. Alicia Day from the Park and Rec will provide an update on the monitored remote learning program. Chris Stoddard, the DPW Director, will appear for approval of a transfer station contract. That will be followed by public input and members' updates. That followed by select board appointments of the Clean Lakes Committee. And then we have a public hearing tonight for the Class 1 and Class 2 license of common vicular license for 221 Great Road, Littleton, application of Kurt Koch of DBA Koch Acton, Inc. That will be followed by a joint meeting with the Littleton Water Commissioners regarding the Littleton Sewer Project and special town meeting warrant articles. Then we will begin with a special town meeting report discussion and approval. We're going to review the warrant report, vote recommendations, and approve the final report. And then we're going to sign the special town meeting warrant. That will be followed by a town administrator update on the reopening of town offices to the public and general updates. Then we will have meeting minutes, and then we will be having a open session meeting, correct, Mr. Layton?
Yes.
Yes. To consider the complaints and charges or discipline or dismissal of a staff member. That will be followed by an executive session hearing regarding the consideration of the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property with respect to Tehadawon Road, and then our meeting will adjourn. So if you could begin, Mr. Layden, I think we're going to actually, oh, you want to begin with the reading of the mail?
Yes.
Okay.
Pledge of Allegiance still first, right?
We already did it.
You did?
Hello?
Did I miss that?
Yes.
I missed it too.
This is
We
reminding
can
me.
do it again if you guys would feel more comfortable.
It's reminding me
I
of,
was on at 6 o'clock. I don't. All right.
you know the Muppets, when you have the guys up in the
The two
balcony?
guys in the balcony here.
Yeah, this is what this is reminding me of.
Dun, 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 dun.
All right. That's not what the game rules are, but right.
The audio is muted, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so within the board's packet, there is a mailer from Greater Lowell Community Foundation regarding a October funding request drive. So there's basically different memberships levels that came in. Next correspondence was a letter written by the chair and vice chair of the Board of Health. And that's all we had for correspondences within the packet.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Layden. And so now we are on to item number 2. I'd like to invite, we have Ann Essman with us this evening, as well as Ms. Bridget Bell, as Human Resources Manager. Our new Human Resources Manager. Good evening.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and if you could maybe just begin with a brief.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you, Ann. Maybe just a brief introduction of yourself, and,
So, I'm Bridget Bell. I went to Clark University. After Clark, I started in human resources in the private sector with both UPS and FedEx, and was there for about 15 years. And actually happened to be on my town's website looking to buy a bulky sticker, and saw that they were recruiting for an HR, part-time HR person, and just decided that I'd like to do something like that, and applied, was offered the position. Tingsboro, it's for the town of Tingsboro, that's where I'm from. So it was a part-time position. They didn't have an HR department, so I came in and started there, 25 hours a week, and worked myself up, and I, now have I think a very successful department. I've created a lot of wonderful relationships with both the town, the community, and all of local contacts as well. So that's a little bit of a background.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I'll just jump in, just going from, the freight handling
Yes.
side of the business to working for your own town. Just what was that transition
So
like?
the major challenges were working for a company like FedEx, which is, a Fortune 50 company.
Structure.
There was, I guess I didn't realize, how much I had at my fingertips all of the time. Whether, you're talking about finances, access to training, et cetera. So coming from that to being a one-man shop was, overwhelming to say the least. And, but it really gave me the opportunity to learn everything from the ground up. When I was at FedEx, you kind of get, streamlined into very specific functions in whatever job you're doing. And at the time I was in most specifically employee relations and in, the packing industry, if you will. So coming over into the public sector and actually being able to see how I could personally affect the people that I work with, whether it's, the retirees, helping them, helping staff through the process of retiring. You actually get to see the result of your efforts, which I didn't get to see very often in the private sector because there were so many people doing the same job.
Mhm.
So challenges, yes, but, great rewards in the same breath.
Yeah, I love the mix. We oftentimes we speak of, well, in the private sector, not in the municipal world, not us working in the municipal segment, we'll liken our own lives, professional lives, but it's certainly not the same on the municipal side. So it's kind of neat that you have that experience,
Right.
and you're also on the municipal side. And, coming from UPS and FedEx, two well-founded companies, where training and development of employees is very, it's very much a big part of their organization.
Yes, absolutely.
So, excited to have you on board.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me.
How big is do you have any employees, or do you have a department in Tingsboro?
I was a one-person department, yes.
I'm curious if you think, or you can predict maybe, do you think that there will be something that you're going to maybe struggle with, like coming into some place where you have more like resources at your fingertips or more people to reach out to, as opposed to doing everything yourself?
No, I think that starting any new job, there's obviously going to be some struggles getting to know everyone, but that's one of the things that I feel like I'm strong at, is getting to know folks and build relationships. So that doesn't concern me. Software is different here than it is in Tingsboro. You guys use Munis. Tingsboro is actually in the process of transferring over, or migrating over to Munis. But with my private sector background, the software that I use is actually very similar to, it's a PeopleSoft program, it's very similar to Munis. So I think that there'll be, some hiccups, but I've formed a lot of wonderful relationships outside of Tingsboro, mentors, folks with the MMA. So I do feel like I have a lot of folks that I can lean on if I need it.
Great.
Excellent. Mr. Glavy or Mr. Knox, do you have any questions or comments?
I just want to mention. No, Joe, you were part of the interview process, correct?
Yeah, nice to see you again, Bridget.
Oh, nice to see you too.
I just want to point out to the board, as far as the interview committee goes, Bridget did an outstanding job with the interview, and a little checklist we had of requirements that we're looking for. She hit almost every one of them and explained it during the interview, so the committee was very, very confident in that choice. So welcome aboard, Bridget.
Thank you, I'm very excited. I appreciate all of you guys.
Mr. Glavy?
I'm just happy that that Bridget is here, because apparently the committee was very excited about her qualifications and the way she interviewed, and seems like she's going to be a great fit for the town, and I'm looking forward to having you start, Bridget.
Thank you.
Excellent. Perfect. So are we ready for a motion?
If you are, then I will move that the select board vote to appoint Ms. Bridget Bell to the position of Human Resources Manager.
Second.
And
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. DeCoste?
I'm in favor.
Mr. Nordhaus?
yes.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye, and so welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very excited to have you.
Yes, I'm very excited.
When do you start?
Next Wednesday.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
We didn't really give you an opportunity. Do you have any questions of us?
Right,
I don't at the moment, but I certainly will reach out if I do. Thank you very much.
all right, good.
Yeah, I'm sure Ann would be happy to share our contact information, and, yeah, if you have any questions
Okay.
at all, anything.
Okay, thank you so much.
It's a good place to eat lunch, whatever it is.
Thank you.
Right.
You bet.
Take care.
nice to meet you.
Congratulations.
Nice to
luck.
meet all of you
Yeah.
in person.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
One
sorry.
of these days, we'll be able to shake hands and
I
say,
know,
welcome
I know,
aboard.
I know. Right, I know.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Excellent. So next on the agenda is an update on the monitored remote learning program, and I believe that we have Alicia Day on the call to speak to that.
Hello, I am here.
Hello.
Thank you all very much for letting me come into the meeting, and we've got Tim Mahowski here as well. We'll just run through a couple of things. So the monitored remote learning program is the program that we're running in correlation with the O'Neill Cinema. So currently, right now, I know I asked Joe a little bit earlier about specific things that we wanted to talk about tonight. So he said specifically how it's monitored, how it works, and what successes we've had. So I'll go into all of those. If there's additional questions, then you can all feel free to ask me. So how it's monitored. So we have an EEC ratio guideline that's 1 adult to 13 children. So at this point in time, we're actually going above and beyond that. We have the current staff from our department that's working there. So myself, Tim, John Kasanjian, and Rachel Carbett. All of us are Corey, Storied, and we have done the fingerprinting through SAPIS. And we are currently looking for program aides to assist the program. So if anybody's listening or anyone knows anyone, please apply for that position. We are looking for program aides at this time. So Tim and I swap out on a weekly basis on who's going to set up the program and be the on-site manager for the week. And John and Rachel help us cover all the roles needed to operate the program right now. So whether it be a classroom monitor, a break monitor, hallway monitor, or even janitor. So we've taken that all upon ourselves right now to make that run. Anything you want to add, Tim? Okay. So how it works. We have our first check-ins at 7 a.m. in the morning. And the last check out, I should say, or pick up, is at 3:15. So we have the kids, if any of you have been to the movie theater, I'm assuming most people have had that opportunity at this point in time. But the kids are spread out with 3 or more chairs in between them, so that's more than 9 feet separation between all of the kids. So we help them get into their digital devices, get them plugged in, logged into Wi-Fi, and then into their classrooms to start the day. All of the kids have very different schedules, so we do keep a copy of their schedules out so we can follow that and keep them on track, make sure they're in the right classroom or working on the right assignment, and we follow their school schedules exactly. And to be clear, we're assisting the kids with the technology issues and management. That's it, and time management, I should say. So the kids are never alone. They're always with one of the 4 of us at all times. We do have space in the theater. We have bathrooms inside the building, and then we also have some outside time where we can kind of run around and have some recess time as well. So the kids do have to wear masks at all times, except for when they're sat in their seats, or if they're able to be outside and be socially distanced from each other 6 feet or more. So that's usually, like I said, lunchtime or breaks, things like that. And then once the kids leave for the day, us, the staff, we completely disinfect all of the seats, the tray tables, railings, floors, everything. So we did get an electrostatic backpack disinfectant sprayer last week. So once we get comfortable operating it, we'll start implementing that. It's a nicer way to be able to disinfect just because it uses the static electricity to kind of cling to everything. So once we, like I said, get comfortable with it, we'll get that out there. All right, so some of the successes. We've created a really calm working environment for the kids. We've had a lot of feedback from them that they love having, the big comfy seats, and they can kind of, spread out a little bit. They've got a tray table so they can have, a drink there, snacks there. And, it's a really comforting, supportive environment for them to kind of focus on their school day. So the beauty of this, with our numbers, I didn't go into that fully, but Monday and Tuesday, we have around 10 to 14 kids. Wednesday is our big day because that's when everybody's remote, so we have around like 22, 25 people. And then Friday is going to be the smaller, like 12 to 16. So, this has let over 20 families be able to get back to, we'll call it a normal working schedule. We're not in normal world by any means. But to be able to let them, when they drop the kids off at school, they can go back to work. Since they have these monitored, remote days, this allows them to drop them off with us. They're still getting the same support that they would being in the school environment. So, that's been really helpful for the families that are in that predicament where they really need that support. And lastly, all of the kids participating have been really respectful of our rules and of the other participants that are in different class schedules. So, the kids have been really great throughout this whole experience and, are having a good time. So, the last piece here is I just wanted to let everyone know that on September 8th, that the Park Commission did vote to allow the youth scholarship funds to cover this program. So right now we have about $5,000 in that scholarship fund, so that would exactly cover 83 days worth of program. So we do vet the families off of the National Poverty Index. So if you or anyone that you know needs support, please contact me, Alicia Day, and my email is aday@littletonma.org. And if anyone would love to be able to donate, you can call the office at 978-540-2490, and we can answer any questions that you have or walk you through that process. So that's what I got. Any questions, comments, concerns?
May I?
Yeah.
This is great. I'm especially impressed with the fact that you're reaching out to people who may be struggling. I know from my experience with donating food that people are often reticent to admit that they need help, and I'm curious if you have any way that you can, anonymously donate, or what you can do about that.
So for folks that need to obtain the support to be enrolled in the program, it's something they communicate with me only, and I keep all of that information private. I usually communicate with the school nurses, and that's kind of how we, advertise it to the families that need that extra support. So I would say, if you need the help, everybody is struggling at this point in time, and it's okay, and I am glad to sit down with someone, walk them through the process, and get the kids enrolled. So this program has been such a relief for the kids and for the parents that are enrolled that it's worth that effort to go through and be part of that program, to have that support.
What age range do you take? Is it school age?
Great question, Nat. Yeah, so we do kindergarten through 8th grade, so pretty vast range.
And my last question, do they get those fried mozzarella sticks?
We haven't had those yet, but yes, they do actually have lunches. So today I went to the high school and I picked up the hot lunch and brought them back. They had chicken fingers and fries.
Outstanding. Thank you very much.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comment from the board?
Great work.
Yeah, no,
Appreciate the
it
service.
really is.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
I have one.
Yeah, Joe?
How has O'Neill Cinema been to be work with?
Great. Tim, I don't know if you want to reach out to that. They've been really easy, very communicative, and right on things when we need that support.
Yeah, both Tim and Dan, they've come to just about every single meeting that we've had. Jen and Star, who are the on-site managers, been excellent day to day. As far as, they're very communicative, really there to help us kind of get everything going. Did a walkthrough with them. They showed me how to open up the whole building so that we could get in there, even if their staff wasn't already there and get the days going. They helped us out with, the security protocols and making sure that we had the right type of stuff to block off the hallways and, making sure that all their staff knew where they were and weren't allowed to go during the hours of the program based off of the Corey and Story requirements. So yeah, kudos to all of them from the top down. It's been a really, really great experience to work with them.
That's excellent. Not surprising. They're wonderful.
Yeah.
Great corporate
They really
citizen.
are. Great idea, Alicia. Thank you so much for this update. It's,
Yeah, no problem. If you guys have any other questions or want us to come back at any time, we're glad to do it.
All right, great. Excellent. Thank you.
If anybody, just to throw it out there, if anybody does want to come and see it, we do get the kids out of there at 3 o'clock. I know that Joe was in one of the very preliminary walkthroughs, but if anybody ever wants to set that up, we'd be happy to have you, 3:15 before we break it down for the day. If you actually want to see it in person once the kids are out of the building, and we don't have to, since I don't know where everybody is at with Corey and Story checks, once we get them out, we can leave it set up. We can do a little tour if you guys are interested.
Great, appreciate it.
A little walkthrough with LCTV.
All right.
There you go.
Great idea.
Great. Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so,
Sorry, for the next item, in talking to Chris, this on the agenda was approval of transfer station contract. He's still finishing up some of the background checks and wanting to make sure that everyone's on the same page, so we just asked that we defer this for a week.
oh, sure, certainly. No problem.
But the bids are all in.
Yes, yep.
All right, great. So next we are on to public input and members' updates. Do we have anyone for a public input, Mr. Layden?
Let's see, no one's raised their hand yet.
Okay,
Okay. none.
great. Members' updates, do you have anything, Mr. DeCoste?
I do not, thank you.
Mr. Nordhaus?
No.
Mr. Glavy?
Nope, not I.
Mr. Knox?
Nothing here.
Okay. I just had some committee updates and things, but I think Mr. Layden's going to speak to that, just thinking that we should invite some committees in to meet before the board. But other than that, I don't have any updates, so. And next,
Actually, can I just jump?
yeah,
Something just popped in my head. We had, last week, we had said that, we had spoken with, Shankar, I'm blanking on his last name.
Yes.
Wantom?
Yes.
Wantom, something like.
Yes.
Yes.
With G7 Labs.
right,
And we had said, we support you staying open. Planning board seemed like they were in support of it as well, and ultimately they ended up not giving him the hours that we kind of agreed to. I just didn't know, we wanna play nice with the planning board, but is there anything that they can they go back and rescind that vote and maybe take a look at that and understand what our recommendation was? Fortunately, I wasn't able to dial in and be heard, but.
Matthew and I were on that call.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like from what I've heard from the applicant himself and others that were on the call, that it seemed like everything was going exactly as we had kind of laid out last Monday or Tuesday. Last week.
Yeah, Monday.
Was it 2 weeks ago? I know. I think it was 2 weeks ago.
I think it was 2 weeks ago. I mean,
In which case it was Tuesday.
Either way,
Right.
when last we spoke about this topic, we had kind of given him every reassurance that it wouldn't be a problem and that we didn't see any issue. The only reason he was looking to come back in after 5 PM or 9 PM or midnight was if he got an error message on his phone that one of his testing
Right.
devices went down. No different than if, say, Great Road Kitchen or the Tavern on the Square had a leak and their HVAC system, they got an alert on their phone, they would have to go in at 3 in the morning and take care of that, or answer a burglar alarm, or whatever it happens to be. So he's not looking to go in there and see customers, and
Right.
I don't know if that was fully understood by the planning board.
it was, yeah.
I'd like to try to have that dialogue a little deeper with them
Right.
and see if they can revisit that decision, just to, I mean, this guy's been, anybody that's in this industry and has been trying to get their businesses up and running, there's a whole lot of hoops that have to be jumped through, hurdles that have to be jumped over, and I feel like he's put his best foot forward, every step of the way, and he was a pleasure to negotiate with, and I feel like this is something that we should be able to accommodate for him.
Right.
So,
Do you know if they closed the hearing?
I don't know if they closed the hearing or not. I know they decided that he could have, and they were, the allowable hours would be till midnight.
right.
Their thought process was it didn't matter to them if he did have to go in there at 2 AM or 3 AM. It wasn't going to be an issue. Thinking about that a little bit further, my only concern is that the thoughts of this board, the planning board as it exists today, right? So they're going to give him the special permit, but what happens down the road when there's turnover on that board? And what if something comes up and they go back and look at this and say, well, what are you doing in there at 3 AM? That's not what it's not what the document says. So I think it would be nice to maybe circle back with them and just ask them.
Yeah, and
To reconsider it.
let's say they close the hearing.
Well, wouldn't they have to close it to vote on the special
I
permit?
know, yeah.
But then they'd have to essentially deliberate on the decision anyways, and there would be conditions that would have to be expanded upon. So I think there would be the opportunity just to ask town planner as far as how and evaluating that condition.
Yeah.
What are some of the bookends that are being placed on it? Because that could make a world of difference as far as you could still abide that it's midnight, but allow for personnel to repair or address equipment failures if it needs to be. Same thing with the data center. And you have those things go down and you have people coming in, but it doesn't mean that they're manned. So I think
Yeah.
just making a distinction between what would be a principal or primary function as far as hours versus what really would be ancillary or just accessory. That's probably some guidance that, town council could also provide.
Madam Chair, Joe just hit a key word to my ear, town council. Has council weighed in on, where this authority really falls, and since it's kind of a dual process here, right? With the, obviously planning board has their role, but we also have a licensing role, right? And is
Right.
it clear which side of the house governs on that?
Not that I'm aware of.
I can check with Maren tomorrow. I mean, one of the main
No, the question was really for council.
just as far as I can check with Maren to see if they have been talking, coordinating with council.
Yeah,
Well, my question was, have we been talking to
Oh.
right,
council?
no,
Right, well, we should.
okay, yeah,
And because, especially because when, and it was like meeting 2 weeks ago, we identified that we'd have to just amend the host agreement to address that. So we need to make sure that what the board was expressed interest and support to do, that then it is lining up. So I think Paul's entirely right, verifying with town council, and I do know for a lot of the applications, council is providing guidance as well for the planning board.
okay, I agree. Thank you, Chuck, for bringing that up. Okay, excellent. Any other comments or questions? Okay. So next, we're on to item number 4, Select Board appointments to the Clean Lakes Committee.
Okay, so I'm just looking just to make sure that some of the people that are identifying coming in are here.
Mr. Layton, I've left two of the appointees in.
Okay, great, thanks.
So we have a Long Lake alternate, and we have 2 openings for a citizen at large, it looks like.
And then just looking to see whether or not we had Laura Evans as well. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for one. There's one person that looks like at least verified with Diane Dickerson that she would participate. So I'll keep an eye out.
Okay. And
So just for clarification, we have a total of 5 that applied, or that we have statements of interest from in the packet. Are they not all still in consideration?
No, it's just a question whether or not they were in with us for Zoom to elevate them to a panelist.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Then it looks like we do have some recommendations from Corey, from the Clean Lakes Committee,
Correct.
made recommendations. Recommended Cammie Bean as a Long Lake alternate, Lisa Winters as a citizen at large, Edward Collins as a citizen at large, and Greg Panini as a Spectacle Pond alternate. Do we have any other applicants in addition to those people I just named, Mr. Layden?
No.
Okay. All right, great.
There are other names in that packet, right? But those are not, right? There was a Corinne Gamache and a Laura Evans.
All right,
Correct.
correct.
I just wanted to, if those folks are here and want to be heard, then we should hear them.
Yep.
Yep.
We're getting there.
So we have, we
Okay,
do,
I just-
yep, we do
Yeah,
have.
no, I'm just
See,
trying to,
they're not up on the screen, that's what I'm looking at.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, we're just working through it. Okay, so who do we have first, Mr. Layden?
We have with us Edward Collins, Lisa Winter, and Cammie Bean.
Okay. All right, great. So we'll bring Mr. Collins forward first.
Hi, everyone. I'm
Hi.
Ed Collins.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good.
Can you hear me all right?
We can. We can. So if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your reason for applying to the Clean Lakes Committee?
Well, I'm a Littleton resident. Grew up in Littleton, went to Littleton High School. Then I went off to UMass Amherst, and now I'm studying at Bentley University and studying accounting right now. But I live, I can see Long Lake right outside my window, so that's what interests me in the Lakes Committee, keeping the lakes clean. I use the trails around the lake a lot, and I've always had a passion for the environment and keeping the environment clean.
Okay, great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Collins? No? All right, excellent, thank you. So that, he was, so that would be, I'm just trying to figure out which member at large. Okay. Do we have any other members at large for that same
Lisa.
slot? No?
Lisa.
Lisa Winter?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Well, just for a better procedure, Madam Chair, I'm sure the applicants were they applying for specific spots, or were they applying in general for the?
Right, no, that's what I'm looking at right now. So, yeah, Mr. Collins did not, he did not check off.
I was just applying for a general position.
Okay,
Right. And I think the memo from Corey, it makes suggestions as to how we might fill, anyway, 3 of the 5
Right.
candidates for those positions.
yeah. Hate it when we have more. Right, so he could submit, fill as citizen at large.
I'm saying is we're free to appoint them wherever we see fit and wherever they qualify, but Corey has made recommendations on that.
Right, yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, so we have, do you want to appoint them all at the same time, or how do you want to go through it, Mr. Glavy?
My preference, I think we ought to hear from them all and then deliberate and move them in, probably, it's presented as one motion in the packet, but I
Okay.
don't really think it makes much difference on that.
All right, perfect. That's the direction I was going in. Okay, great. So we have Lisa Winter, I believe, next, Mr. Layden?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's so hard now. Lisa, are you there?
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. So thank you for submitting your application. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be a member of the Clean Lakes Committee?
Sure. I've been a Littleton resident now for about 4 years. I live in the Long Lake area, so I'm close to the lake and I use it regularly. It's wonderful to have in my backyard and I appreciate it as a natural resource in the area. Professionally, I am a coastal engineer with the U.S. Army Corps New England District in Concord. So I'm familiar with a lot of coastal and estuarine as well as lake processes. My technical background is a bachelor's and master's in civil engineering. So I think, my professional and personal interests align well with the committee.
I agree, thank you. Any questions or comments for Lisa in the board?
Eminently qualified, I would say.
All right, great, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and who do we have next, Mr. Layden?
Cammie Bean, and just to also let you know that Laura Evans, who also had submitted for her interest, joined the Zoom meeting as well.
Okay. Okay, great. So we'll hear next from Cammie.
Hi all, good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. I'm Cammie Bean. I'm also a Long Lake resident with Lisa and Ed. I live on the other side of the lake though, off of Goldsmith Street, but in fact, when we moved to Littleton 15 years ago, it was Long Lake that drew us here. I'm a water sports person, having grown up as a competitive swimmer. I spent a lot of time in the lake, both kayaking and swimming and walking and enjoying the trails. I've actually been sitting in on Clean Lakes committee meetings for about 2 years now. I've been an alternate on the Long Lake Neighborhood Association and increasingly involved there. My professional background, I'm actually an online training educator and communicator. So I've done a lot of online learning for a lot of different corporates, including organizations like the World Wildlife Fund on water stewardship programs and exciting things like that. The back of my yard is up against woods, and we have a stream going back through it that does not flow into Long Lake. It actually goes out to the Assabet River, but I'm really interested in the cleanliness and safetyness of our other waterways and streams in Littleton as well. So that's been sort of part of my focus in the Clean Lakes Committee meetings that I've been attending.
Excellent, great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Cammie? Okay, great, thank you. And next we have, we have Mr. Panini?
No, we have Laura Evans.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you submitted an application, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm a new resident actually to Littleton. My fiance and I just moved here about 2 months ago to the Long Lake area. And like Cammie, we're actually off of Goldsmith. And I just really wanted to get involved. I did get appointed to the Littleton Common Committee as well. And it's something that I just want to make Littleton a great place to live. I want to get involved and get to know people. And so I'm just excited to, make this my home.
Great. Excellent, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Laura?
I just noticed that Laura put down a couple of other committees that she may be interested in, and I've got my eye on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking to get involved, in different committees, in 1, 2, 3, any number of committees as well. So I'm certainly open to, other ideas as well.
Excellent.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you. And do we have anyone else on the call, Mr. Layden?
No, we don't.
Okay. All right, good. So we have, so Mr. Panini didn't come forward. Okay, so, as stated in the memo from Corey, he did make recommendations. We've heard from those applicants with the exception of Mr. Panini. I think it's, what about, Corinne?
From Gamache?
Yeah, is she on the call?
No, she's not.
Okay.
And Diane had reached out but wasn't able to get confirmation.
Okay, all right, and she had put down some other committees as well. So we do have recommendations from Corey, as I had stated. I know, we just heard from Laura, but she just wants to become involved, and we certainly have plenty of areas where we could direct her to, so, to help. I love it when people come forward and want to become active in the community. It's really wonderful. So, is there any other questions or comments from the board on this at this point? About it?
Madam Chair, is the suggestion that unless board members say otherwise, where the recommendations of Corey Godfrey is what you'd be looking for a motion on, and I don't mean to preclude anyone else's input on that, but is that the assumption?
Yes.
Okay. And relative to Mr. Panini, he is not here, but I'm not sure we ever received anything in writing from him either. I would just feel more comfortable that we get something, either a letter from him or maybe at the next meeting he showed, so that we could hold off on that appointment unless he was, until he's available or expresses interest.
Right, and I don't see that it's part of the motion anyway, so, yeah, I agree with you.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep,
Well, then I'll hold off waiting the motion until everybody's on board with it.
yes,
Yes.
Yeah, the only, I mean, everybody's from Long Lake, but I do think there's some pretty good presidents with Spectacle Pond folks, with people over on Mattawanaki, and I don't know if there's anybody represented on Fort Pond, but, I mean, obviously these folks represent all lakes, but,
did we already fill those other slots, though?
yeah.
Yeah. So,
I can share that the membership, the current membership of the Clean Lakes Committee does include a pretty diverse,
Right.
Yeah.
cross-section from all the lakes. So there's a
Yeah.
lot, there's a big Fort Pond, Mattawanaki.
right,
Yeah, for sure.
There's Cam.
okay.
All right, and assuming that everyone's said their piece that needs to, I will make a motion, then, Madam Chair. Move that the select board vote to appoint Cammie Bean to the Clean Lakes Committee Long Lake alternate for a term expiring June 30th, 2022, a 2-year term. And did I get that correct? Yeah, and Lisa Winter to the Clean Lakes Committee Citizen at Large for a term expiring June 30th, 2022, a 2-year term. And Edward Collins to the Clean Lakes Committee Citizen at Large for a term expiring June 30th, 2021, a 1-year term.
Second?
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Mr. DeCoste?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Yes.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye. So the appointees are filled, and thank you very much as well to Lisa and, Laura and for coming forward. So certainly, I think we can follow up. There's other vacancies that
Absolutely.
you might be interested in other committees. No, I really appreciate you wanting to become involved in the community just after moving
I
here.
would love to. Can someone contact me with more information?
Yep, we can
Great,
do
thank
that.
That's,
Great.
that's me dialing your phone right now. Economic Development Committee,
All right, wonderful.
would love to have you. Thank you all for stepping up.
All right, great, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Joe, can you give a pen and email to Laura and copy me on it?
Okay, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule for our public hearing. Scheduled to start at 7. Is there anything else do we want to do in the interim? Do we want to take a look at the meeting minutes or anything like that?
Yeah.
we do have minutes from the September 8th meeting. I think that's the only one, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Most everybody's had a chance to look them over. I don't know if there's any
Any
amendments or questions.
No.
I think they're accurate.
Okay. All right, great. Ready for
And I
motion.
will move that the board vote to approve the regular session meeting minutes of September 8th, 2020.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. DeCoste?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye. The motion, the minutes are approved as written. And then maybe, Mr. Lane, do you think you have time to want to do the town administrator update now?
Yes, I was just going to recommend that.
Sure.
Okay, so, continuing to give an update, things are still going well at Town Hall. Last week, we actually had 70 people, so before I told you we went like this, we came back up. But again, I don't really think that there's really an impact that's felt as far as there's no crowding within Town Hall. There's no people lined up in the hallways waiting for offices. For the most part, it's been manageable. Inconsistent through the day, so still going well. Some of the things, just want to make sure that, especially as we've had a very busy month coming in from the end of August through September. Know we've been meeting a lot, and primarily for the purpose of a special town meeting. One of the things is that looking ahead, we're like right around the corner from pretty much our busy season, and a lot of things that we probably need to at least discuss for prioritizing from a time perspective. Back over the summer, we talked about bringing in some committees, so we need to see how we can sort of sprinkle them through meetings. One that's probably rises to the top is planning board. There are some goals and policies that they are looking to incorporate into the town planner's evaluation. So getting some direction and being on the same page as far as what to work towards over the next year would be important. We also have back, the board talked about a retreat, scheduling a retreat of the board. So that's something that we also have to try to fit in. Diane Dickerson, in sort of providing me with an update, identified that we're going to be coming up to our liquor renewals, also common vic entertainment. So we're going to have to start notifying those companies and those establishments of those renewals coming up, so that we'd be looking at meetings in November to deal with those. November or the first meeting in December to review and approve licenses. So with the reviews that need to be done, make sure that things go to the police department. There's some things that we need to put into place. We also are kicking off the financial season, the FY22 budget season. That will essentially kick off with our October 13th joint meeting with FinCom, also for setting tax rates. So there's we just came out of annual town meeting approving our FY21 budget, and then this town meeting making some revisions, and then looking to see what guidance we're going to have for the FY22 budget. We also then have some contracts that are going to be expiring come June 30th, and that budget guidance that we would be putting forward would be something that would come into play there, as well as far as how we handle that, looking at our FY22 budget. So there's quite a bit of stuff that's on our radar going forward, and especially we did talk about goals now. If you include tonight, 3 meetings ago, and making sure that we can try to finalize that. If there's anything that Diana or I can do to assist with that, so that we can make sure as we're going forward, laying out the remaining of 2020 and looking to 2021, that we can make sure that we are staying on task on some of the board's goals and initiatives that we want to undertake.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's important that goals is pretty succinct, so that when we are setting priorities relative to the budget, it's in alignment with whatever goals, whatever we're looking to accomplish. We need to make sure that we're.
Right, right, exactly, and so, I'd like to invite in the Master Plan Implementation Committee, the Sustainability Committee, and Mr. Layton already referenced the Planning Board, to bring them in, and just, because I know, they have certain initiatives, and I'm certain somehow align with our goals, and just try to get us all on the same page, especially as we lead into the budget cycle, in those discussions. I don't know if there's any other committees that you can think of that maybe we should invite in anticipation of budget discussions, or?
I don't know offhand, but it's a good idea. We should be thinking about that.
Okay, all right. Okay, and I know that we as a board had come up with our top five goals. I was gonna actually send out just kind of a little reminder on that, for discussion purposes, and then we can circle back and revisit those as well, and come up with some definable objectives and, what's the word I want to use? Come up with a plan, like a measurable, plan going forward,
Roadmap.
so, okay. All right. Is there anything else?
Yeah, just wanted to just follow up. There are some other longer term things, sort of, or things that the board want to make sure we address before time went by. Trying to coordinate, and we have a tentative date, but it could flux depending on Paul's and my schedule for visiting the Nagog Hill Orchard. So that's one of those things that this fall, I think it was maybe a month ago, that had forwarded around what town council considered was final draft of the RFP for the orchard. Paul and I are coordinating a visit this week, so we can just see the operation, get a feel for things, and then realistically over the next month and a half, we should be, really not month and a half, finalizing the RFP. If there's any other groups besides the board that we need to consult with to get that on the street, because or at least the timeline that the board had for the previous one was that we were awarding in January. So January 2021 is unfortunately going to be here before we know it, and making sure that we can get all those things in place. So that's one that tracking, and also waiting to hear back from the architects to confirm that they're getting into Indian Hill. That space needs is also one of those things that
Right.
we need to get going, and especially because if there is anything to happen at annual, that window also will start to tighten soon.
Right. Okay.
The other thing that was of interest to the board, the Friends have done an amazing job clearing the thrift shop out. There's just a couple things that are old pieces of equipment, or not equipment, but shelving, display cases that everyone's trying to find a home for. So that we can start to work with our maintenance department in order to give things a little refresher, so that EHS can then utilize that for meeting with families and people that are visiting the department.
Okay, great. Excellent, thank you. Okay, so
Sorry,
we're-
I'm looking at this clock and it just struck 7. I'm thinking I'm doing right on the second, and then I look at my laptop and we still have 3 more minutes.
We do. Okay,
I'm gonna use the restroom for 3 minutes.
okay. All right, so we'll take a short,
Ready to go.
Maybe not that precisely.
okay. So we'll take a short break for a few minutes.
Maybe we can send it out to Stadler and Waldorf up in the balcony. Muppets.
I'm sorry. Just napping.
Muppets. That was good.
What does that make? What am I? Animal, Fozzie Bear, Gonzo?
Take your pick.
Yeah. Oh, man. Snuffleupagus?
I don't think Jesus on the Muppets.
No.
It's Sesame Street.
Sesame, yeah.
Is Mr. Koch on the call?
Yes.
Koch or Coach?
Koch.
Koch.
It is?
Or cook, sometimes it's pronounced.
Or Coke, yeah.
I'm sure it'll tell us if we ask.
Rhymes with Scotch. Koch.
You asked.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Glenn Hoffman introduced him as Coach.
Okay.
What's over Joe's shoulder?
Is there something on his shoulder?
Well, his head's in the way
Yeah.
now.
Okay. So Mr. Nordhaus has returned.
You.
Are we ready to begin, Mr. Layden?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Chris was here, would be all set.
Right. Okay.
So-
All right, so next on the agenda is a public hearing for a Class 1 and Class 2 license and common vicular license for 221 Great Road, Littleton. Applicant is Kurt Koch, DBA Koch Acton, Inc.
He's not unmuted for starters. Also, I noticed there's an attorney in the attendees list. Is that perhaps an attorney that's representing Mr. Koch, or?
I don't
Might
think
want to
so.
be let into the meeting if it is.
He's for another.
Hi. Good evening. Can you hear us?
We can, good evening.
Sorry about that. We were muted. We were muted, which doesn't happen often. Technically challenged. So I'm Kurt Koch, this is my brother Tom. That's Chuck Deagle.
Good
And
evening.
there is no attorney here. Careful, Chuck is a CPA though.
And he stayed at the Holiday Inn Express last night.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, great.
Just a procedural question, should I read in the public hearing notice?
Please, yeah, I was going to ask that.
If you got it up.
Yeah. Ready?
Yep.
The Littleton Select Board will conduct a public hearing on Monday, September 21st, 2020 at 7 PM to act on the request of Kurt Koch, DBA Koch Acton, Inc., for a Class 1 license to sell new motor vehicles, a Class 2 license to buy, sell, and exchange used motor vehicles, and a common victuals license for their premises at 221 Great Road, Littleton, Mass. 01460. Due to COVID-19, the public hearing will be held in a restricted in-person manner in room 103 of the Littleton Town Offices, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass., with additional remote participation via Zoom video conferencing. Details to be made available on the Select Board agenda when posted. A minimum of 48 hours prior to the meeting, in addition to the public hearing, can be viewed live on LCTV or online at https littleton.vod.castus.tv.vod. VOD. Comments thereon may be submitted in writing to the Select Board / Town Administrator's Office, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460, or by email at selectmen@littletonma.org before noon on Wednesday, September 16th, 2020, or by Zoom participation at the meeting. Littleton Select Board Chair, Cynthia Napoli.
Great, thank you, Mr. DeCoste. So just reading through the notes here, there's no change of use. The building department and the planning department advises that there's no further approvals needed. There's one outstanding approval, it appears, from the Board of Health. But other than that, it looks pretty straightforward, so I don't know if the applicants had anything that they would like to address with the board.
Any questions you have for us?
Okay.
I don't think we have any questions at all.
Okay.
But just continue business the same as it's been, with Mr. Moran.
Okay, excellent. Any questions or comments from members of the board?
I don't know if they're going to continue operations. We did have the public might be interested. We have had, a lot of information from department heads and the inspection services folks that those things that need to be addressed are being addressed in terms of transfers of licenses, and some things will be coming up in the next weeks or months, I guess. So that has, it may not be might not be coming up in any meaningful way tonight, but that is being looked after.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Everybody's, I want to thank everybody. Everybody's been really nice and helpful in the process, so thank you.
Yeah, likewise, in speaking to the folks at, the old haunts at Acton Toyota of Littleton, I know that Mr. Moran and Mr. Hoffman are pleased to be part of the team, and I think they were looking for the right fit for their organization, for their employees, and for the town, and they felt strongly that your organization was that organization. So we're looking forward to having you as one of our neighbors and a long, positive relationship.
We're really looking forward to being part of the community, and we thank you for being so long.
Great.
Absolutely.
Excellent, thank you. There's no further, Mr. Knox, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Just welcome to town, and I just want to make sure you're going to offer the same type of services that was being offered.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I think that Mr. Moran and Glenn Hoffman have done a great job, and we want to continue to grow the business from where they've grown it so far.
You going to keep that nice cafeteria open?
Absolutely. Very important. I like to eat.
Got to get COVID out of here so we can get those donuts back.
Look at those cheeks. The man likes to eat.
You can tell it's my brother, right?
Excellent. So any further questions or comments from the board? Believe that we're ready for a motion, Mr. Chair?
Since it is a public hearing, I think, Madam Chair, you probably ought to just ask the question. Does anybody, member of the public, that wants to be heard?
Okay, thank you for that reminder. Do you have anyone, Mr. Layden?
No.
Okay,
Motion to close the hearing?
please.
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion to close the hearing's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. DeCoste?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Cindy Napoli, so the motion is, the hearing is now closed. And so we are now ready for a motion.
Yeah, assuming there's no other deliberation from board members.
Correct.
Don't want to jump the gun. All right, good. Then I will move, and this is actually two motions, and I guess, Joe, the advice is that, Joe Layden, the advice is that we can do both concurrently?
Yes.
Okay. Move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Sections 58 to 59, to approve the application of Kirk Koch doing business as Koch Acton Inc. for Class 1 and Class 2 licenses to buy, sell, and exchange new and used motor vehicles at 221 Great Road, Littleton, Massachusetts, and move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 6, to approve a common victualer's license for the cafe at Koch Acton Inc., 221 Great Road, Littleton, Massachusetts.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. DeCoste?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye. The motion is approved as written. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Really, thanks for being part of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So next we have a joint meeting with the Light and Water Commissioners regarding the Littleton Smart Sewer Project and special town meeting warrant articles. Mr. Pegasic. Are they all in, Mr. Layden?
Yes, it looks like they're just connecting.
Okay, great.
Joe, you got Ivan's on, I think Jim Carr and Bruce are just signing in right now.
Okay, thank you.
Right, you're not gonna be able to see Jim and Bruce, just talk to them.
That's how we like it.
Okay.
I
Well
heard
planned.
that there, Mr. Chuck.
Sorry, Mr. Jim.
Okay, great. Do you want to lead us into this, Mr. Layden, or?
Sure. So at our last select board meeting in reviewing the warrant, identified that there was still some additional details that the water commissioners were looking at. The sewer working group had been working with CDM Smith to finalize some numbers. They weren't quite ready for our warrant, and
Joe's muted, I can't hear him.
Can't hear it all.
Oh, you can't hear Joe Layden?
Frozen.
Well, Joe is muted specifically.
well, I'm in the room. I'm
No, but
Hold on.
your
Video went away.
and your, it's showing on our screen as the mute button is on.
We can hear him fine in the room.
Okay, but I'm telling you,
Working on it.
okay.
Judy's working
Okay,
on it.
There we go.
There you go.
I was gonna say it's the LCTV feed. So I don't know if anyone heard that. I'll just start over.
Sure.
At the select board's last meeting and discussing the warrant, there was some additional information that was needed as it related to the sewer project. There was a meeting that occurred with the sewer working group last Wednesday that was preparing for the water commissioners that evening. So that's in order to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Water commissioners are joining us so that we can have a discussion as far as following up on that warrant article and making sure that for the any of the articles that are coming up for special town meeting and us preparing and finalizing the draft special town meeting report, they're all able to discuss the articles that are on the warrant and also how the project is going and what direction we need to take this town meeting.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for that intro. So, Mr. Begasic?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Joe indicated, last Wednesday, we received an update from the sewer working group at our commissioners meeting, and we discussed Article 11, I believe it is, for a special town meeting. In that article for borrowing a sum of money. And what we're looking to do is we're not ready at this point to present to the town a full sewer project, but rather looking at focusing on the upgrade of the discharge site at the high school to start. We're still working with our engineering consultant. We're getting additional information regarding the full project, candidate sites, narrowing that list down. We have instructed our general manager to start to put together information so that we can update the town on progress as to where we are, and include information as well with this request that we have for Article 11 of this fall. It's for a sum of money, $2.5 million to upgrade the discharge site, and that also, our hope is to utilize the Mass Works grant of $1.5 million towards that upgrade of that site at the high school. That's the overview where we are. We have members here from the sewer working group that can add specifics if there are questions that I can't answer, but they are on here to support and answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments about Article 11?
May I?
From the select board? Sure.
Is this funding just for upgrading the site at the high school?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay.
Hey, Madam Chair, can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
Just to clarify what I was talking about, the $2.5 million is the total project cost of the discharge site, and that gets the discharge site to a capacity of 175,000 gallons per day. So at the end of it, we'd have a discharge site at the high school that can support what that site can support. That's all the site is able to be permitted for. And then whatever direction we go in with the sewer infrastructure in the future, that site will be done and ready to go. So out of that $2.5 million, $1.5 million should come back through a Mass Works grant. So it's really just an outlay of $1 million from the town. The town doesn't have to borrow the money; it gets refunded back through that grant. And I'll be talking with Cheryl, Joe, and the Mass Works folks in the future to talk about how the logistics of that work.
Okay. All right, great. Any other questions or comments from the select board on that?
No.
Great.
I'll add this just because I'm, on the sewer working group, and I think the transfer of the project over to the water commissioners and the subsequent hiring of the new engineering firm has just been yielding all positive results, and it's a slow process. I wish it were faster, but they're doing it the right way, and I think that's the thing to do.
Right. Okay, great. Excellent.
Can I ask one more? It's a
Sure.
more general question. The capacity of the discharge site, you might not be able to answer this. How much of the town or the areas that you identified as high priority could that handle? Like what percentage of that, of the daily use of that area would be handled by that discharge site?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. We don't necessarily have that answer yet 100%. The worst case scenario for the areas that we looked at, I think it was 460 or so thousand gallons per day. But that's a worst case scenario. I'm not sure that that's actually what it'll end up being.
But are you pretty confident that this by itself will not be enough?
I think that's way into the future.
Mm.
But yes, at some point, the town's going to have to identify other discharge sites in the future.
Thank you.
Looking at a full town sewer.
The master plan that we did never is a full town sewer. It's
All the
four
identified areas.
There's really no need to do the entire town.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts of the town that wouldn't benefit from sewering. But there were four, I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't, it was the Common, Beaverbrook Industrial Area, Long Lake, Taylor Street, and the Taylor Street Depot area, and then Boston Street and BTA. Well, the four areas that CDM had determined either from an economical or environmental standpoint should be sewered.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, so that was Article 11. We were going to discuss Article 12.
So for the warrant, it was Article 11 that, had somewhat that unknown. And
Okay.
within the report, that's where the recommendation that not to exceed the 2.5 and that the 1.5 that Nick mentioned about the MassWorks would cover a portion of that.
Okay,
So when we compare the actual warrant articles, we're just putting all that detail into the motion.
okay,
So ultimately, as it relates to the report within Article 11, it'll be a question as far as, is this to be moved and seconded by the water commissioners for special town meeting to vote, or the select board? We already have it drafted in the report, so that's something that in the next agenda item we can cover, or if with the water commissioners here, if this is something that the water commissioners would be moving for a special town meeting or the select board. Just make sure that we're, all on the same page on who's putting that forward.
okay. Okay.
The other articles, outside of the description being in there wasn't anything else that changed
Okay.
with Article 12, or backing up the article for dealing with the PFAS.
Okay,
That had pretty much been known at that time. There is additional detail within the motion setting a dollar figure. And then the others, we had home rule petition for the sewer, which that's a placeholder, which we don't anticipate needing. And then we get into the Whitcomb Ave property, and then amending prior votes. So all those are drafted except for the Article 12 home rule and the Whitcomb Ave, because again, our hope is that we don't need those going into special town meeting. Once the legislature approves things, then we'll be prepared to just pass over those two.
okay,
12 and 13.
Madam Chair?
12 and 13.
yes,
Just a quick update. Joe brought up the Whitcomb Ave treatment plant. We received word that third reading happened at Senate committee with favorable result. And now it is on for final roll call vote before it goes to the governor.
okay, great.
Did you stage this?
Who, me?
That's excellent news.
Yes,
That's
it is.
great.
If it was that easy, Paul, I'd be done already.
Oh, we gotta boost our ratings, drama helps.
Okay.
All right, good. Is there anything else, Mr. Lead?
I don't believe so, unless Nick and the water commissioners had something else.
Right.
If I may, just because we've got some of the commissioners and Mr. Weller on there right now. I want to propose something, and I'm just kind of throwing it out there. If, at some point in time, we have an opportunity to purchase a piece of land, I would like to see us, before putting any type of CR on any land, leaving the door open to have that land potentially be used by our water department as, might be for wells, it might be for a treatment facility, just because if we're able to acquire a certain amount of land, there may be part of that land that could in fact be used for a a passive or an active facility that
Right.
the water department would appreciate access to. So I'd like to just kind of throw that out there, and I see that the chairman's still there, and some conversations have gone on in the past, you know, that it would be nice if we'd be able to access this land or that land. Mr. Bogacic, if you'd like to comment on that.
I think that's an excellent idea, and is something that I think would benefit the town. Wonderful foresight in going into the future. We don't know what the future holds.
Right.
And you know, looking out 20, 30, 40 years, I think it's a smart thing to do, so that we have access when, you know, we have such a valuable resource as water.
Right,
I think it's important.
right.
Yeah, we've got very limited land on which to do that, so anytime we have the opportunity to acquire land, I think that before we put certain restrictions on
Right,
said land, we should make sure that we keep the door open.
right. Yeah, because we've had some situations in the past where there's, because of a CR, we haven't been able to utilize the land for another purpose, and it really, you know, tied our hands, so I
Or
think
any
that's
restriction,
smart.
any restriction.
Right, yeah. So, I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Bogacic.
Thank you.
All right, great. Good point, Chuck.
Thanks, guys.
Any other questions or comments from anybody? All right, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, so now we are on to special town meeting report, discussion, and approval.
Correct.
Review the warrant report, vote recommendations, and approve the final report, and sign the special town meeting warrant. Okay.
So, and I printed off for the three of you there and emailed it to Paul and Joe, but then also just to specify, the draft that came out towards the end of the afternoon today is essentially the same thing as the board saw Friday and over the weekend, and what Joe and Paul have as a hard copy. What has changed is there may have been something where they removed a carriage return, they adjusted spacing, they, instead of having a dollar amount in parentheses, they removed the parentheses. There's nothing that had changed as it related to reorganizing sentences or rewording things. It basically was just making it look a little prettier. So they're to say non-substantive is really almost an overstatement, because I was hard pressed and I had to turn on track changes to see what really changed.
Okay.
So one of the main things was the item we just had with the water commissioners, as far as Article 11 having that detail now within the motion. And same thing as far as some of the other articles that we're waiting on from some last minute numbers, prior year bills, the tables for FY21 budget adjustments. You've seen a lot of those previously, but it's just everything is now in a neat form. As I said, and it sounds from water commissioners that we won't have to worry about the Whitcomb as well as the home rule if they've already had the readings. Those motions still state to be made at town meeting, so fully now can expect that we'll be passing over those. One of the other articles, which has to do with Article 8, which is the purchase of Tehadawon. We're going to have a discussion, an executive session, finalizing that. The motions are pretty straightforward for the most part, outside of the zoning, the land purchase. They're fairly straightforward. So wanted to see as far as the board having any comments or edits, or if there's things that between town council, myself, and Cheryl, we need to include. We did include, and it was actually very helpful to go through that exercise, trying to identify parcels at the last meeting. So we did put in some maps to define exactly what parcels when we talk about the open space for acceptance. The street acceptance is the one thing that's going to be also, we'll have to provide recommendations at another date, just because we're not having our layout hearing until it's scheduled for next Monday. And the planning board actually still has a meeting to discuss those roadways at their October 1st meeting.
Okay.
So those will be something that will be going in and providing either a amended handout for town meeting or reporting town meeting floor. So.
Okay.
And Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I might ask you, I don't know why this didn't catch my eye earlier, since it's a personnel-related bylaw, but Article 9 on the list of holidays, it's a small point, but one of the holidays is listed as 4th of July, and I believe the proper term is Independence Day, and I don't know if that is in there because it reflects language somewhere else, or whether that's consistent usage throughout any of the contracts it's referenced in. It has the odd implication that if the holiday is referenced as 4th of July and it fell on a Friday or Saturday, I believe the observed holiday for contract and personnel purposes would be the subsequent Monday, correct?
Correct.
So,
Paul,
you
raised an excellent point, and that I think will be, because we now also have to make an adjustment for Juneteenth as a recognized state holiday. I think we can make that change at the spring annual town meeting. This list is exactly how it is printed in our personnel bylaw.
So it's obviously not creating a problem now, but maybe for future reference, we might want to clean it up.
We should absolutely clean that up, including the fact that we have veterans as a possessive rather than a plural. So we need to correct that as well.
Just the one veteran, it's his day.
It's one Veterans Day. Every day,
Rotates
then
every
we
year.
can have, every day can be a different veteran.
Patriots stay the same.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And New Year's
we
Day.
actually did correct New Year's. But that it's funny when you've had established language, sometimes you something that's been there for maybe a couple of years, you all of a sudden pass over. But that's on our radar. We'll take care of that for when we have to add Juneteenth for
Housekeeping.
Yep.
I'd like to ask the question about Article 5. I thought we had some conversation around that, and thought it was kind of too soon to be looking to rescind that and take that to town meeting. And it's something we just voted for in 2018 to have that dredged. We're waiting on, actually, we have someone who's from Corps of Engineers that we just voted on to clean lakes. So maybe we can have her pull some strings for us, or put some pressure on somebody. I thought we had some conversation around not
Yeah, we
placing that on
did.
the warrant.
So one of the things that asked for specifics and a rationale was, why, when we still haven't done all the dredging, why do we need to then rescind, and what is the status? Corey Godfrey had let us know that the article that funded this was specifically for a feasibility study. There was a portion that we were splitting with the Army Corps of Engineers. We no longer have to split that cost of doing the feasibility study. So because that article was only for the feasibility study and not, say, for actual dredging, we'd have to take that money from the study, put it back in to that Spectacle Pond, Cell Tower Clean Lakes Fund. And then in the spring, once the feasibility study is done, and we then identify what the cost is to do all the dredging activity, that's when we'll access those funds again. So this was specifically on drafting the feasibility study, which is being covered 100% by the Army Corps. We don't have to pay our contribution.
So it's so that we can use this money for something besides the feasibility
We can actually
study.
use it for the actual dredging, which the article only had it for the feasibility study.
Okay. All the funding, where does the funding come from for any of the management of any of the negotiated leases or anything that we have with the cell towers? It's a probably rhetorical question right now. I don't expect you to have the answer right now, but that is something that I don't think is necessarily earmarked. I think it's done by the water department, light and water department, maybe by the commissioners. We should see if there is a line item for that, because previous life, I know that there can be a lot of negotiations involved with negotiating wireless leases.
Yes, absolutely.
And want to make sure that we're able to put our best foot forward, because we've got that funded. So
Exactly.
Not saying that this should be transferred into some other account to be able to fund the negotiations or the administrative costs that are associated, but it should be something we're aware of. That
No, I think that's the board, and maybe it was you, Chuck, who mentioned it at a previous meeting, that we should have a good understanding as far as the parameters for those leases, and have identified what those terms are, and just like regular contract negotiations, which pop up fairly quickly before we know it, having that on our radar to then be on top of is important. So I think that's something we can easily pull together.
That whole thing, all inclusive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for addressing the Article 5 issue, and
Sure.
maybe we can address the other stuff later date. Joe?
Oh, great.
Looks pretty clean otherwise.
Okay. We're gonna
Recommend articles? or-
circulate the warrant for signature, electronic, well, here we go.
I got it on the pretty paper.
All right.
Joe and Paul, I'll bring this around either to you tomorrow, or if you were planning on heading to town hall at all, to get your signature for the actual warrant.
I can head to town hall.
I probably will be doing that as well, Joe, but a reminder text if I don't get there by midday wouldn't be a bad idea.
Will do.
Thank you. Did you lick this pen?
Huh?
Is this pen clean?
We need an official pen. Each member should have like an official signing pen that's like real and nice and fluid for
I think we like the
signatures.
same pens, Joe. So we're gonna review for recommendations, or? Am I getting ahead of the game?
You gonna keep a list, Joe, as we go through that, so when I make a motion, I can defer to you on the numbers?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Get my pen back.
Oh, here we go.
There's usually,
Yeah.
I got one right up here, never mind. I got it.
No, you, it's all set. Okay.
Okay, I think we're ready whenever you are, Paul.
Make the motion?
I mean, is there anything that anybody wants to exclude and not include, or not recommend?
Yeah, I mean, that's
or-
where,
Well, sometimes we don't actually vote a recommendation on those items that aren't ours.
In our bailiwick, yeah.
So I'm a little unclear as to what articles we're gonna include here. For instance, let me throw us for instance out there, I mean,
Four?
I guess that's it, I guess man, we managed to get our fingers into every one of these.
I know.
Yeah, we do,
That's
yeah.
what I'm looking at.
We're on each one.
and that's where, also, looking for the board as far as guidance, because it will especially be relevant, guidance for annual town meeting. Especially since there are many that are being moved by the select board, and then we do have just looking at past practices where the board then also does vote to support the article. So if you're looking at one to, verify that, yes, the select board will move, and second to approve as we have in the motion, or vote to support.
Okay, then, Madam Chair, question to you procedurally. I don't want to assume that every member supports voting recommendation on every one of these articles unless we give them a chance to say otherwise. There's a couple of the water department articles here that I don't have a problem with any of the articles, but somebody might not support or any of the leash law, whatever it is. So maybe we should, I can make a motion on all of the articles, but if there's any, when we get around to doing a vote, if anybody wants to abstain from any particular article recommendation, it probably ought to be given a chance to be recorded as such.
Right. So I would need to abstain from Article 8.
And I think we should hold on Article 8 until after this evening,
Yeah,
as
I
far as the
agree.
recommendation
Yes,
is
I
concerned.
think that's a good.
That's
don't have enough
full
info
force on that one.
Right.
So, good point.
One procedural question, just almost like town meeting, where you can just say, vote to, approve and support Article 1, give it 2 seconds. If anyone says, I have a problem with that, just say hold. And then we go through, and I can mark who's holding, and then at the end, we can go back to those articles. Because otherwise, a lot of them, they're going to be probably unanimous that the board would.
All right, Joe, you're just making my job longer and tougher, but that's
No,
all right. No,
I understand where you're coming from
that.
that, but I think the only ones that we have to potentially hold are 8, 18, 19's clear, right? The Durkey donation,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's not many.
20's clear, the K parcel. So, are we good with the roads? Is that information complete as of right now?
No, the
So
roads.
I think 8 and 18 are the two, as I see it, those are the two that I would hold.
Those are holds, right, but they may be, I don't want to preclude a member from saying, well, I'm on board with all of them, but I'm not gonna endorse this one or whatever. All right, well, I'll just read through the list then,
Is
right?
that- I mean, is that-
Why don't I try that then, Madam Chair, we take a stab at this motion then. I'll do the slow walk like Joe recommended.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, all right, let's try this. Move that the select board vote to recommend Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
I will abstain from 13.
Matthew's gonna abstain.
From 13, Matthew?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's why we're doing this exercise.
Mm-hmm.
14, 15, 16, 17, 19, and 20.
Second? Joe's got it.
That was a motion.
Joe seconded it, yeah.
Okay. All right, so motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comments, questions? Okay. All those in favor? Mr. DeCoste?
Just, you had made a statement about, we didn't include it.
Yeah, we
so we're
didn't
good.
include
we didn't
that.
it, all right.
Right.
So,
Do you want me to reread?
aye, nope, aye.
Okay, yeah.
Read it again, Paul.
Right.
No.
No, yeah, no, I think that went well, so, okay. All those in favor?
I'm in favor.
Or Mr. DeCoste?
Yes, with my one exception, I am in favor.
Right,
Yeah, and that's noted for the minutes,
Thank you.
correct?
Yep.
Well, soon we'll get that.
yep. Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Cindy Napoli is aye. Okay. Good.
So then, going back to,
Second procedural vote too, Joe, is that right?
yes.
Okay, then I'll also move, Madam Chair, that the select board vote to approve and sign the special town meeting warrant. Second.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor, Mr. DeCoste?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Yes.
Mr. Glavy?
Yes.
Mr. Knox?
Yes.
And Cindy Napoli is yes, aye.
So one other thing. So 8 being the land purchase, and then we have 18 being the street, the layout. I just lost it on my iPad. The language within because this is going to be going to the printers tomorrow, we can deal with that when we talk about executive session. But this one of the things that maybe the board might be able to, because we have stated that the motion, under motion to be made on town meeting floor. I guess we were probably a little presumptuous as far as select board supports this article. I can amend it to say select board will provide its recommendation at town meeting to line up with the motion.
Yeah.
We're not going to have that recommendation till we go through our layout hearings, but we have to get the report printed. Yeah. So that would be the one thing that I'd ask that we make a modification to this draft report to basically state that the select board will provide its recommendation at town meeting.
Yeah, we'll post for 30 minutes prior to town meeting so that we can take that vote.
Yep, exactly. And it may be something that then we are able to make that vote at a subsequent meeting and provide it in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep,
I think you're empowered to do that.
okay. All right, good. Is there any further discussion on that? All set? Okay, so we're ahead of schedule.
Well ahead. So I'd like to propose, I've been texting Tom Harrington on the side. We could, he's available, we could go into the land purchase executive session ahead of
Perfect.
time.
Let's do
to
that.
get
Yeah.
that out of the way.
Right, perfect.
So vote to go into executive session with the intent of coming back out for open session
Yes, correct.
Okay.
to finish our business. Do you have that
Okay,
motion, Paul?
so you want a motion to that? I don't actually have a motion here, but I can,
Yeah, got-
I
yeah.
can, do we have one from last week, Joe, that we could use
This-
as a model?
It's in
Item
the-
10.
It's in
Item
the
10.
agenda. You could read the agenda item.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do. It's not the form of a motion, but I will then make a motion, Madam Chair, that we enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or valuable real property if the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
With the intention of coming back into open meeting.
With the intention of coming back into open session before we go into executive session again, correct?
No, we're just coming back, I believe,
We're just coming
from,
back,
to open.
right. There's no executive session.
This is the only executive session.
Okay, but then,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, yep.
But there is gonna be another one later, no?
No.
No,
Not
okay.
executive session, no.
Okay.
It's been
right,
determined-
that's
it's been
right. That's already been determined, I got you.
Yes.
Then, with the, then as Vice Chairman DeCoste indicated, to return to open session.
Right, correct.
Second.
And so the chair, as the chair, I do declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. DeCoste?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
And Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Cindy Napoli is aye, and I will be recusing myself from this discussion. Step out.
Okay, folks,
Okay. Good evening and welcome back to the Littleton Select Board meeting for Monday, September 21st, 2020. We are now on to agenda item number 10, which is a hearing to consider complaints and charges and discipline or dismissal of Michelle Cobley, Assistant Zoning Enforcement Officer for the town of Littleton, to set expectations with respect to anybody participating on the Zoom call. The board will not be entertaining public input or public comment from anyone this evening. To begin, the Select Board opens this disciplinary proceeding as a result of the findings from an audit of the processes and procedures of the building department. The audit was conducted by Donna Brewer, Esquire of Myers and Harrington, who has joined us here tonight, over the course of several weeks. The findings of the audit reveal that conduct by...
Madam Chair, can I just interrupt? I'm sorry, I meant to do this earlier. Having read the report, it is a reference to a project that I have an interest in, and so with an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself from this topic, and I'm going to ask Joe Layton, I guess, to drop me from the panel on this. I have filed a while back a ethics form with the clerk's office, and the project in reference there, Hilly Corner, appears in the report once by reference, so I don't think it's integral to the discussion you're about to have, but just to remove any appearance of conflict, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Glavy. Duly noted. We'll wait for Mr. Glavy to be removed from the meeting.
Yeah, I'll have to, there you go.
Okay. To resume, the findings of the audit reveal that conduct by an employee in the department, Michelle Cobley, violated the standards of employment for the town of Littleton, state law, as well as Littleton's zoning bylaw. Ms. Cobley was invited here tonight to answer for these violations. These infractions include conducting site inspections of building projects when you were not authorized by law to do so, issuing permits without authorization to do so, issuing numerous zoning opinions in violation of the Town of Littleton zoning bylaw, failing to collect or waived permitting fees. By way of background, since as early as 2015, Ms. Cobley's job description was not on par with the minimum qualifications mandated by the state law to do that job. Job descriptions cannot authorize an individual to conduct building inspections in contravention of state law. Ms. Cobley's positions required her to have a working knowledge of state law. Any inspections she performed were knowing violations. These positions included zoning assistant, permit technician, business administrator, zoning officer, and conditional local inspector. In addition, while the building department records establish that Ms. Cobley conducted many site inspections when she was not qualified to do so, several were performed after her efforts to be certified had been rejected 3 times by the state. The first denial by the state was in February of 2017. The second denial was in July of 2017. And the third denial was in February of 2018. The building department records also established that Ms. Cobley issued zoning opinions and waived building permit fees without authority. In conclusion, the audit revealed that Ms. Cobley has violated state law as well as the zoning bylaw and standards of employment conduct for the town of Littleton, including fraud in securing an appointment and falsification of town records. At this time, I would like to invite Ms. Cobley to speak on her own behalf regarding the findings set forth in this statement. The only comments this board will entertain are those which pertain specifically to the matter at hand as summarized in this statement.
Okay, so the allegations against me as described in the letter of September 17th lack adequate detail for me to properly prepare a factual response. I'm requesting the findings of the building department audit referenced in the letter and a continuance of this hearing so that I may adequately prepare to speak on these allegations.
Ms. Brewer, how do we respond?
You can go forward with the hearing if that is the will of the board.
Okay. Okay. What is the will of the board?
I think that the report speaks for itself. I think that the findings took some time to accrue.
Mm-hmm.
We've had to review them in the same time period.
Right.
I'm prepared to move forward.
Okay.
I don't believe,
Madam Chair?
Just one second, Mr. Knox. Go ahead, Mr. Norris.
I don't believe a response would change my view of the report either.
Okay. Mr. Knox?
Could I ask Ms. Crowley to repeat her statement, maybe because of the protective mask? I couldn't hear everything she said.
You
Go
can
ahead.
take that off.
Is she asking for more time?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Colby. Please reread your statement.
I'm asking I'm stating that the details of this letter lacked adequate detail for me to properly prepare a response, and I'm asking for the findings of the building department audit and a continuance of the hearing so that I can adequately prepare to speak on these allegations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I believe that the findings of the audit do in fact speak for themselves. I don't know what response that the board would receive from Ms. Cobley at this time that would actually change the findings in this regard.
Did she get a copy of the findings?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you might want to lay out what those findings are.
Okay.
To give her an opportunity.
Okay, sure, we can do that.
She doesn't have a copy with the,
No, at the time, it was going to be, this is going to be conducted in executive session, Mr. Knox, and it was a personnel matter, and we had not shared the findings at that time of the audit report.
And it was protected by attorney-client privilege, and it was confidential.
Right.
The report is, but you'll want to and now it's a public record, but
Right.
The findings of it, which relate primarily to what the state found 2
Right.
years ago, has always been a matter of public record.
Right. So with respect to the findings, Ms. Cobley, the first finding was fraud in securing appointment and falsification of town records, making misrepresentations to procure an appointment as a conditional local inspector while knowing this appointment was in violation of state law because you lacked the proper qualifications and licensure to perform the duties of this position. Conducting inspections and acting as a local inspector when the state law prohibited you from performing those inspections. And executing documents as the inspector after the Building Official Certification Committee had first denied your request to take the exam in February 2017, and continuing to do so after the state denied your credentials for a third time in February 2018. You also violated the Littleton zoning bylaw by issuing zoning opinions from 2016 to 2020. You issued numerous zoning opinions and violations of Littleton's zoning bylaw, which gives authority to issue zoning opinions solely to the building inspector, the only position authorized to determine and enforce compliance with zoning bylaw and issue permits. It's zoning bylaw section 173-3, 173-5, and 26-A. The report also reveals that approximately $1,500 in fees were arbitrarily waived or uncollected by you in the time that you were employed by the town of Littleton. As you are aware, you appeared before the Division of Public Licensure on numerous occasions seeking an appointment as a local inspector. As you know, you were denied those applications on 3 separate occasions, yet you continued to perform the services and responsibilities of those position as a local inspector, even though you weren't qualified to perform those duties. The Division of Licensure specifically notified you on numerous occasions that you were not authorized to perform those duties. You received those notifications in writing, as did your then employer, supervisor, thank you, Mr. Bernier. Yet despite those written notifications from the state, you continue to perform those services in violation of state law. We have numerous examples of those. We have numerous correspondence from the state to that effect. So you willingly were aware of what you were permitted and not permitted to do in your role as a member, an employee of the town of Littleton. So I'm not quite sure what other information you would need to prepare for this hearing in response to those.
Okay, so
comments.
first, I'd like to again request a copy of the findings. And then I'm just going to read this statement. Again, I have already requested that I be allowed a continuance to review this information because the September 17th letter did not go into details. I offer the following for the record in an effort to be transparent and affording me due process. At no time did I conduct independent building inspections. During the Building Official Certification Committee hearing, Mr. Bernier, former building commissioner, attested this to be true. My actions regarding this allegation were consistently under the direct supervision of the building commissioner. I'm confident Mr. Bernier will confirm my response. There is an audio recording of the BOCC hearing. At no time did I issue building permits as alleged. At no time during the BOCC hearing did the topic of issuing building permits arise as alleged. At no time did I knowingly issue zoning opinions in violation of the zoning bylaws. The Board of Selectmen has not advised me as to what violation they believe exists. I cannot prepare a response without the benefit of the specific allegation. At all times, I was acting within the scope of my employment. In fact, my position as Assistant Zoning Officer was approved by Personnel Board, Building Commissioner, Town Administrator, Board of Selectmen by proclamation. There was no objection from Human Resources or Town Council to this appointment. I have been performing the duties as outlined in the job description with the full knowledge of all parties noted above. It must be assumed that Town Council was in agreement of my position, as I have over the past few years consulted Town Council on numerous occasions regarding interpretation of the zoning bylaws and zoning opinions written and signed by me in my capacity as Assistant Zoning Officer. If Town Council had a concern, they had a duty and obligation to express their concern if I was acting outside the scope of my authority. As far as this waiver of fees, I have not been advised as to what the violation exists. I need the details of this allegation in order to address this allegation.
Are you through? Did you have more?
For now.
Okay. So just in short, in response, job descriptions cannot authorize an individual to conduct building inspections in contravention of state law. 7080 CMR 110R 7.171 states that no individual can be permanently appointed to the position of local inspector unless that person has been deemed qualified and certified in that category by the Building Official Certification Committee, the BOCC. To be appointed a conditional local inspector, the regulations require that the individual meet or exceed the experience requirements to be a local inspector, but merely lack that state certification 780 CMR 110 The conditional local inspector must pass a state certification exam within 6 months of appointment unless the BOCC extends the deadline. Someone who has not attempted to take the exam within 6 months period should not be granted an extension. No more than 3 extensions are permitted. 780 CMR 110R 7.2.2.1 requires that an applicant for a local inspector must meet or exceed the qualifications of the position before she will be permitted to take the exam of certification. No person may take examination for a local inspector without prior approval of the BBRS or the BBOC. You were denied 3 times permission to take the examination.
And at no time did I ever conduct independent building inspections. I was, as part of the succession plan put into effect, I shadowed the building commissioner on inspections and was always under his direct supervision.
Okay.
This was discussed during the BOCC hearing.
Okay. So we have information to the contrary. We have the findings of the BOCC hearings. We have the audio tapes of the BOCC hearings as set forth in the report. I don't think there's any need to go back and forth about this, to be honest with you. I don't think that anything that you're going to provide is going to contradict the information that we've obtained through our findings.
So have you contacted all permit holders and got verification that I was performing independent inspections?
It's all in the report.
Okay, well,
You can read it
again,
in the
I've had
report.
no time to read this, and again, I've asked for a continuation to
Okay.
be prepared for this meeting.
Okay. I am not inclined to provide you with a continuation to prepare for this hearing. I think you've been given adequate time to do so.
I cannot address things if I don't know what I'm being accused of.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to offer continuation either. I'm not, frankly, not looking for you to address anything. The findings are the findings. We've performed an investigation. The investigation has shown without a shadow of a doubt that there were investigations done. So I'm,
Right.
There were no independent inspections done. I was always under the supervision of the building commissioner.
we're not going
He
to get into
attested
citing,
to
we're not going to
this
get into citing
at the
addresses, in which
BOCC
case you
hearing.
were, and so that's not what we're looking to do. We've
Right.
gone through the investigation, it cites countless,
I think the report speaks for itself.
it does speak for itself.
Right.
So,
okay.
I'm really not looking for any continuation or for you to contest any of the findings, frankly.
Right. Okay, so at this time,
Actually, I'm just going to, the statement that you made where a bunch of parties were privy to you acting on whichever behalf, a number of different capacities. I was sitting on the board at the time, and it was 100% conditional on you getting your license. It was conditional on you continuing your education and meeting all the requirements in order to operate as state law dictated.
No.
At no point in time did we put you under a microscope and say, did you get it, did you get it, did you get it? We assumed that your supervisor at the time was doing that, so to put it back on the Board of Selectmen, Ms. Napoli read it perfectly, your job description.
that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, can I respond to that? Again, these were all discussed at the BOCC hearing, and I never performed independent inspections. The hearing of March 26, 2018, in which the job description for Assistant Zoning Officer was approved, there was actually extensive discussion, most specifically by Chase Gerbig, that he didn't want this position being flip-flopped back and forth. The Assistant Zoning Officer is totally separate from a local inspector position. You are not required to be a local inspector to be a zoning officer. And again, if there were concerns about my stepping outside of my authority, they should have been brought to me. Town council was fully aware of the opinions that I written. I discussed many zoning issues with him, and never once was this concern addressed that I was outside the scope of my authority. I was acting within the job description that was approved for me to do.
It doesn't matter, you are acting in contradiction of state law, so it doesn't
State
matter.
law does not require a zoning officer to be a local inspector.
Not that I feel as though I needed to defend town council, but town council does not make a practice of knowing every single person, their capacity. They assume that the person is acting in
Good faith.
good faith,
Town
and that
council
they
is
do in fact.
fully aware that I was writing zoning opinions. I have
And so it,
plenty of emails and plenty of discussions. There's never been a question as to what I was doing in my capacity in this current job as Assistant Zoning Officer.
to the best of my
I'd
knowledge,
also
town
like to
council
just
didn't know
state that,
unless-
may I continue?
Sure, good.
I'd also just like to state that I've had an exemplary performance record for 9 years, until recently, when the current building conditioner.
All right,
has
we're not
alleged-
going to talk about your job performance right now. That's not germane to this proceeding.
Yes,
so
I believe it is germane
It's
to
not,
this.
and I'm saying that it's not. I think the report speaks for itself.
I
Do
think
we
it
have any
does,
other
yeah, I think
comments
so.
from
I
members
agree.
of the board?
I agree with you.
Mr. Knox, do you have any comments to make?
Yeah, I have a problem. It's, number one, until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I thought this was executive session. Secondly, the report is, okay, it does stand for itself. It's in detail, and if I just went by that, then I wouldn't have a problem proceeding. But when someone comes before a board and asks for time to prepare and a copy of the findings, then I think that person should be given that opportunity. It might not change the outcome of my thoughts on what's here, but I think due process allows this to happen.
I think due process has happened, Joe.
I don't believe it has. If she hasn't had a copy of the findings and she wants time to prepare, I don't see a problem with that. Just my opinion.
Do you have any opinions on that as counsel, Donna?
As I said before, I think it's the will of the board as to whether you want to grant her that additional time. You can take action and give a hearing going forward at some other time.
Okay.
And you would then have the right to change your mind about what you did. But you're not required to continue, you're not required to grant her request. It is something that is within the discretion of the board to do.
Right, because we charged you with doing an investigation. The investigation was done. We've got the results of the investigation, and we feel it necessary to act swiftly and take action.
You do. You can do that if you feel it's warranted to take action tonight rather than continue. That is up to you.
Okay. I would prefer just to take action tonight. I don't believe that there's any rebuttal or response or findings that are going to be contradictory to the information that we have in this report. The report's very thorough, and like I said, it definitely certainly speaks for itself, so. So with that being said, the board has decided that we're not going to continue this matter.
Well, I'd take a vote on that,
To a
just
later
to see.
date, yeah, exactly.
Which should be a roll call vote.
Yeah.
as you know.
So we'll do first a motion, how would you word that, Donna?
A motion to grant the request of the employee to continue this matter for a date certain when she will have an opportunity to respond to the written report.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
All in favor of granting the request, would say
Granting the
aye.
request. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All's in favor, please signify by saying aye.
No, roll call.
Oh, roll call vote. Sorry.
Okay, before we do this, I'm confused. What are we actually voting on?
It was a motion to grant the request to continue this
Continuation.
hearing by Ms. Cobley.
Yes, a yes vote allows for the continuation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so roll call vote, Mr. Knox?
I'm in favor, yes.
Mr. Nordhaus?
No.
Mr. DeCoste?
No.
Cindy Napoli is no. So the hearing will not be continued as requested by Ms. Cobley. And so next we need to decide on a course of action in light of the findings of the report with respect to Ms. Cobley's employment with the town of Littleton. As stated in the report, the findings include fraud in securing an appointment, falsification of town records, and violations of Littleton zoning bylaw as well as state law.
What is, excuse me, what is the town policy? Is there a town policy that covers this sort of infraction?
So the range of the policy can just be from, disciplinary, imposing some sort of discipline up to termination.
It could be nothing.
Nothing, yeah, exactly, yeah. So.
Well, I think based upon the significance of the findings, and the fact that it occurred over a number of years, the statement's been made that we can get the testimony of the BOCC. We've done that. We've gotten all that evidence and all that information. And frankly, I don't put a whole lot of merit in the individual that we're relying on for that information that was testifying to the BOCC. Your supervisor at the time, acting on your behalf. So I'm inclined to the strictest punishment, which would be termination.
Okay. I agree with you. I mean, the report was done, conducted by town council. We have plenty of supporting documentation to support the findings in the report. And I believe that the findings of the report are egregious enough to warrant termination of employment with the town of Littleton. Do you have anything to add to that, Mr. Nordhaus?
I have nothing to add. I think that's an accurate appraisal of the situation.
Okay.
And I also would recommend termination.
Okay. So do you want a crafted motion to that effect, Donna?
What about Mr. Knox?
Mr. Knox?
I just don't believe we're moving in the right direction. Believe me, the report's here, it's very thorough, it speaks for itself, but due to the process, I wouldn't agree, that's it.
Okay, so speaking of the process, just for one moment, Attorney Brewer, so we provided ample notice under statute when this was going to be held in executive session, correct?
We did.
We did. So I don't see why, now that we're not in executive session, that there's a problem with the process. Inadequate notice, so.
Well, it's not that big, but my argument is, if she's asking for time to prepare, that's what, and to copy the findings, that's the only thing.
But if it had been...
I'd probably end up having the same feeling you have right now,
Right.
and continue one step forward, but past that, so it's up to you,
Right.
the rest of the board, to make that decision.
Right.
If it had been executive session, would Ms. Cobley have had access to the report prior to the session beginning?
No.
Okay.
In that case, I don't see how switching it to open is anything but a strategy to delay.
Right.
That's how I see it.
Okay. Okay. So do we have a motion?
Move that the select board recommend to just terminate employment of.
I believe you are her appointing authority, so the motion would be to vote to terminate her employment with the town effective whatever date you choose.
Let's have some deliberation about that.
Excuse me?
Do you want to have any deliberation about?
About the date?
effective
About the date? No. No,
Effective immediately?
yeah,
I think that's appropriate.
I second that motion.
okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please. Mr. Knox?
Nay.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoste?
Yes.
And Cindy Napoli is yes. Okay, thank you. That concludes the hearing.
Motion to adjourn. Board of Selectmen. Meeting.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Knox? Mr. Nordhaus?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoste?
Aye.
Cindy Napoli is aye. That concludes our meeting for this evening. We will be back next Monday night, correct?
If it's a Monday, we're meeting.
Yeah, we're meeting. All right, good night. Thank you.
Have a good week.